Hello from North Carolina. This is our 24th live session. So our plan is to go live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the most part, to share fashion industry news from the previous week. So if you are Team Replay or Team Live, please let us know if you are joining us and where you are joining us by commenting below. And that is my cue to switch up my banner. And one of these days I will be able to do it a little bit more seamlessly. But in any case, if you guys are joining us, please comment below. Let us know where you are joining from. And if you are Team Live or Team Replay, I'm Rosalinda Cruz, founder and chief business development officer of the ASOR Collective, where we help underrepresented leaders in fashion with strategic planning and advising. Our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive, sustainable fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So on these lives, I try to reconcile my love of fashion and retail with my values around sustainability, diversity, and inclusion. So I advocate for supply change and raise buyer awareness. Those two are sometimes in conflict. So my goal is really to get out of the silo effect, work across sectors in the fashion industry, and create solution-based conversation versus hair-splitting debate. So I really feel like we need to be more comfortable speaking the truth, right? Whether it fills the room or clears it out. So in our time together, I'm going to see if I can switch up my screen here. There we go. So in our time together, I try to cover announcements, any planning PSAs, North Carolina news, product services, workforce, and then the green carpet, which is where I talk about concepts, processes, and brands that are being called to the proverbial carpet. So, oh, one more thing that I want to say before we get into it is please go to our YouTube page. I put the link in the comments, but please go to our page, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to reach our goal of 100 subscribers, so please help us do that. Link is in the comment, but let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. So last week, we had our executive roundtable, and basically the first month of the quarter, well, let me back it up. Every month I do an executive roundtable. The first month of every quarter, a core group of us meets, and essentially it's a small group, under 12 people, but each person sort of represents a various link in the apparel value chain. So we come together and we actually reflected on first quarter and talked about opportunities for the second quarter, which include B2B digital presence and sales, as well as trends in retail. So I wanted to take some time to share some of that information with you guys here, especially since this is the last week of the first month of the second quarter. So I am going to get into that. Next slide here. All right, yes. So Q1 insight. I don't know if it's just on my end, but I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. So if you guys know me, you've heard me talk about Edited. I love their dashboard. It's an incredible tool and resource just to get some great data regarding what's happening in the industry. So this was information that I got from them. As you can see, March arrivals were below 2019 numbers, and this is for a third year in a row. But in March, there was a 20% increase in arrivals. So also with new product launching in Q1, it decreased by 22%, right? And if you guys remember, in fourth quarter, it grew 27%. So top categories were dresses, bottoms, and also average discount for Q1 was 40%, which feels pretty high, especially given that this is when a new season is coming in. So I'm wondering if those high discount averages are due to the fact that people are still moving through some of their previous season's inventory. So something to think about there. So this was another survey that I saw where one of the questions that was being asked was, where are you seeing the biggest challenges in your business? And based on the results, 52% cited pricing as their biggest challenge. And obviously that is, you know, the impact on that is from the strain on the supply chain. So keep that in mind. And then second, 25% and their biggest challenge was e-commerce growth, and then 13% promotional activity. So that promotional activity just sort of goes back to that 40% average discount for the fourth quarter there. So I'm kind of curious, for those who are either joining us live or those who are watching the replay, like, what has your experience been? Like, what do you find are your biggest challenges, or what were your biggest challenges in the first quarter? And did any of this information resonate with you? All right, so Q2 insight. Go. So one of the things that I actually wanted to say here is that the focus on in second quarter is typically on getting ready for the spring summer market. So spring summer market, the 2023 market is going to be taking place in September. So this is really where a lot of fine tuning is happening, not only for that market, but also just for your Q3 strategy in general. So this is arguably the biggest moment in fashion. So it is important that we are putting the right amount of time and thought into doing this planning. So the other thing that I also wanted to mention, that this is the start of cotton season, at least here in North Carolina. So later on in the quarter, if the grounds and conditions are right, cotton seeds will be going into the ground. I also wanted to make a note that, or remind people that, I wanted to say, back in February, depending on what cotton product you are purchasing, you are starting to see the impact of the increase in prices. So I know back in February, we were seeing yarns from the 2022 harvest entering the market, and we were starting to see price increases in those. Now we're starting to see fabric from the 2022 cotton harvest enter the market. So you will be seeing an increase in that. So on to some news. So 2022 retail sales, this is according to NRF, the National Retail Federation, are forecasted to increase by 6 to 8%. So bringing that total, or estimated, forecasted, there we go, total to $4.86 trillion. So that is crazy. And 60%, there was a great article actually in McKinney by McKinsey and Company, which I suggest you guys read, but 60% of B2B buyers are open to purchasing on digital marketplaces. So a couple of things that came up is how a lot of B2B businesses aren't taking advantage of the digital marketplace and are losing sales as a result of this. This is something that I talk extensively about with my clients, and being able to take advantage of those digital marketplaces. Also in Q2 news, so this is actually information that came from Remake, but the Garment Workers Protection Act, which is HR 2468, is going, sorry, it is actually the Made in the USA Act. So that is HR 2468, and it will include elements of the Garment Workers Protection Act. So I am curious to see how that continues to take place. And then before we continue on, I wanted to share our executive roundtable schedule for the rest of the year. Like I said, typically the first month of the quarter is when we have that core group meeting. That is a group that represents the various links in the apparel value chain, from farming all the way through to end of life use. Next month, our focus for the executive roundtable is going to be connecting, it's going to be on circularity and really connecting in with circularity executives. But the third month of every quarter, we will actually be talking about government export assistance for Made in the USA apparel. So if you are interested in either one of these, please send me a message directly, and I will be happy to share more information about that. So let's keep it moving. North Carolina news. I didn't really have any North Carolina news. So let's move on to industry news. Okay, industry news. So this is interesting, but according to a LinkedIn post, Hudson Bay took one of many steps in what they are calling a truth and reconciliation journey. So they announced their intent to gift their downtown Winnipeg Hudson Bay building to the Southern Chiefs organization. So they recently unveiled a plan to turn that building into a space for economic and social reconciliation. So that is great. In product news, The Real has partnered with Remake, and they are doing a little bit of fundraising for Remake, and they have a special page where they are selling hand-picked items from the Real collection in an effort to raise funds for Remake. So that's super exciting. I actually want to go back and take a look at that and see if there's any goodies that I want to purchase. Service news, and nothing really in service news this week. Workforce. So this is actually great, but BOF had an article. BOF is Business of Fashion, another one of my favorite publications and go-to resources. But they published an article that is called "Where Are Fashion's Black CEOs?" So one of the things that they, go on to talk about is, right, there are constantly executive shuffles happening in the fashion industry. But the last one came against the backdrop of the industry's heightened focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So despite several years of mentorship programs, DEI councils, recruitment efforts, all meant to increase Black representation in every sort of rung in the corporate ladder. It's still almost all white men who are appointed to top titles, right? The only exception to that is being Lena Nair from Chanel, who is Indian of Indian descent. But the one thing that they talk about is how the lack of diversity, right, in these top executive positions, it extends beyond European luxury brands, right? So there are a number of brands who are founded, have Black founders, and there are also a lot of established American brands, right? Um, and retail brands that have appointed Black CEOs over the last decade. But those numbers, right, of appointed executives actually are small and can be counted on one hand. So, and there still isn't a Black female run large fashion company. So, um, and that is according to this article. But in any case, definitely check out that article. And it was really interesting because I know that we're all familiar with that that graphic of what leadership looks like in startups, right? Where it's all white dudes at the top of the pyramid, and in a couple supervisor roles, there are a few females and other people of color sprinkled in there. But apparently, that same image can be used for the fashion industry. So let's keep it moving. So we are at the green carpet, right? And the green carpet is where I talk about brands, concepts, and processes that are being called to the proverbial carpet, right? There is no shortage of ethical dilemmas. There are siloed discussions, a whole lot of infighting from farming, manufacturing, vendors, academia, brands, journalists, and activists, right? And the one thing that I recently added in there are the gatekeepers, because there are definitely a lot of gatekeepers in this industry. But in any case, I know that things can be intense and even a little contentious, but really this is an invitation to a conversation, right? I also, feel like it is important to acknowledge that, despite the fact that I have 30 years worth of experience in this industry, I'm still learning, and I sometimes get that wrong. And I think that it is not only okay, but important to be able to acknowledge that. So I am going to be actively practicing, calling people in versus calling people out. So definitely bear with me as I kind of clung through that process. But I mentioned this at the beginning of the live segment, but really my goal, through a lot of my work, but definitely through these lives, these green carpets, and even my executive roundtables, right, is to get out of the silo effect and work across sectors in the fashion industry to create solution-based conversation versus hair-splitting debate. So, that's that. I don't really have a lot to talk. I don't really have anything to talk about in the green carpet this year. But one of the things that I actually do want to talk about next week and go into a little bit more information about this is talking about conscious consumerism and conscious consumption. I feel like we talk about that a lot in the industry, and I actually wanted to, we're going to hit snooze. That is my time, but we are at the half hour mark, even though we started a little late, but that's okay. But we talk a lot about, the conscious consumption, conscious consumerism. And again, I wanted to be able to share some information on what that actually is, But another thing that I actually wanted to talk about in next week's live is um, the difference between, and this sort of falls into that area of conscious consumption and conscious consumerism. But one thing that I don't think is talked about enough as people are discussing this is addiction-based shopping, right? And what does that look like, right? And how do you make the distinction between addiction-based shopping versus shopping for joy? So that's something that I want to get into, but I also want to put it out there that we're open to suggestions. So if there is a topic that you want me to delve into in the green carpet, please share that in the comments. So we are out of time according to our timers. I like to stay on time. But just to recap, actually, we did release a newsletter last week, so check that out. That'll be published on LinkedIn this week. Our subscribers got early access to that last week. And thank you to everybody for all of the well wishes on our 4-year business anniversary. So thank you to everybody for that. But next week, like I said, I want to dive into this topic of conscious consumerism a little bit more. And just remember, our intention is to show up every Tuesday for the most part. Oh, that was my first time singing on here. You guys know when you see me in person, I like to throw in a little ditty here or there, but that was your first little taste of it. Any case, so our plan for the most part is to do these lives every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive, sustainable fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. See you next week. Bye.